to Rushanara now, please. Rushanara?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'm going to continue some of those questions. Just picking up on what you said to Chair Tim, could you just talk us through whether you've had any, whether you've been consulted at all by government on some of these issues, and you've painted a picture of thousands of vehicles picking up on the Chair's questions, and the spectre of chaos, actually. How does government, using the last few months of time that's left, avert what is likely to be a very disorderly exit by the end of the transition period?
Thank you. There is a clear plan in place which will make for arrangements that are orderly, and if the plan is followed, should ensure that traffic flows in a smooth fashion in the same way that it does now.
And how confident are you, Tim, that the plan will be followed? There's about 2/3 of customs brokers don't say that, according to one survey, that they don't have enough staff to handle the extra paperwork. You mentioned that they must do the paperwork. If 2/3 don't feel ready to do the paperwork needed across the EU-UK border after 1st of January, how is that realistic? How is that possible?
The customs agent's question is way down the supply chain from ourselves, but it's indicative of the phenomenon that all parts of the supply chain do need to be ready. The plan is a good one. The plan is practicable. The plan is well capable of delivering the smooth flow that is intended, but the plan does need to be delivered in order for that to guarantee. I beg your pardon?
So just in terms of the time frame that's left, we can have the best laid plans, but if you have finite amounts of time, and we have a very finite amount of time, and I'm particularly interested in the preparedness, as others are, for the 1st of January. Imagine you've headed towards New Year's Day. We've had a year of COVID crisis and the rest of it. Does the timeline fit with a very well laid out plan that you're describing? The plan is good, but in practice, can you see this happening by the 1st of January smoothly? Yes,
no? I can, as long as the preparations are approached expeditiously in the time that is left.
But that is big as long as, isn't it? And what we're finding in terms of evidence and experience is that plenty of, just on the elements that you're talking about that need to come together, they are saying they are not ready.
What we need to see in the months ahead is the administrative stuff done, approvals and designations actually issued rather than being talked about being issued, and funding to be made available to enable the civil works that are needed on infrastructure to be begun and as best as possible completed in time.
But that's not happening. That's not at the moment. You're not inspiring confidence in what you're saying about readiness.
We'd like it to happen faster.
Okay, fair enough. Right. So moving on. So to Elizabeth, just in terms of the government announcing funding and a support package. They announced that they boost the capacity of customs intermediary, the sector, including brokers, freight forwarders, and express parcel operators. And at the time of the announcement, you were quoted as saying that the government has listened to our concerns and made allowances to enable our sector to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and plan effectively so that we can continue to trade effectively with Europe. Do you feel that the government's given you enough time? Do you still hold on to that statement, or do you have anything further to add to that?
Yeah, so there's lots of different elements that do need to be ready, as well as the funding for customs agents. So thinking of what we do need to prep for, we've got about 8,000 international road haulage companies in the UK, and then there's 85,000 VAT registered trading businesses, and many of them won't have experience of rest of the world trade procedures. So We have to get ready in terms of systems. There's 9 separate systems and requirements of the freight industry for customs, for safety and security declarations, exports. There's a new smart freight system, which I would like to speak a little about, which is meant to help with the border delays in Kent, issuing a Kent access permit to take care of some of the concerns that Tim was having. But there are 9 different systems: safety and security declarations, import control systems for Northern Ireland, goods vehicle movement systems for roll-on, roll-off trade, and then separate ro-ro customs systems for the trading countries, France, Netherlands, Belgium, Republic of Ireland, that we need to.
And are you, are you set for that? Would you say that?
Yes. My view on this is that I believe the systems will be ready by the end of 2020, but I believe it will be down to the wire. And the risk is that delivery could be too late for industry to have time to fully prepare to use them. And that was our concern about smart freight in particular as well. But what we are doing in terms of will business being prepared, we've been actively working with government. In fact, talking to officials yesterday on some agreed metrics to plot EU exit readiness. We're being asked a lot: is business ready? Is government ready? So I think that will be really useful for confidence and focusing activities in the right areas so we're prepared. And the types of things we're proposing is to be tracking that smart freight border delay upstream compliance system. Is that ready? Is it tested? Are the border readiness sites that are linked to that ready with people trained to help? Are there sites for parking in Kent? Are the customs agents in place? How much of that £84 million has been drawn down? Are traders ready? Are they?
Sure. Yes. So lots of questions. We're about to head into more restrictions in terms of what people can and can't do in terms of COVID and the likelihood of a second wave now. And so I think just one final thing, which is, already the EU has stated that the implementation of full checks would be possible from day one. We haven't been able to do that. Already we were behind, given the circumstances around COVID and the concerns around what's about to come next. Do you and others feel confident that we are going to be prepared by the 1st of January, or is it cloud cuckoo land to think that we are going to head into, we are going to have a smooth transition and we're going to be able to exit in an orderly way?
Yes, I think it would be foolish for me to say that there were going to be no issues at all. There will be people who are wanting to be ready, doing absolutely everything they can to be ready. Yeah. And then we won't be able to get the comms out to everybody to be ready at that time. There are mitigations in place to make it as good as it can be, but it won't be perfect.
Could I follow up on that, Roshara?
Yeah, sure.
Just to say, and I think the one sort of, Tim sort of hinted at it as well, the missing link in the armor, so to speak, in all of this is, how do you ensure that there is end-to-end across the supply chain readiness? And to Tim's point, a port cannot make those provisions at the end of the day on behalf of traders. But what I think, to go back to what Anna was saying at the end of the day, is that you're concerned about is making sure that the people who are, particularly from an imports perspective, since I think that's what the inquiry is focusing more in terms of the UK's customs policy, is making sure that traders understand all of the information that they now need to give, which is different. And I would say that for the vast majority, that clarity is not there yet, simply because the negotiations carry on. So there is inevitable tension between wanting to give the government as much time to get as comprehensive an agreement as possible and needing to have information as early on, particularly since...
When does the government need to, by when, or have we passed that date?
I think that they have certainly made a reference point to October 15th as being their own deadline for a deal, so to speak. And I think that, going on last year, business can adapt and react, but not at the last, the 11th hour. Otherwise, you are going to have a disruptive end to the transition.
So what's the date? What date would the 11th hour, in your definition, be?
It's completely different. It's completely different by individual businesses within supply chains. It depends on whether you're talking about, for example, understanding that the movement system and who needs to interact with that, the goods vehicle movement system.
So October October could be too late. October could be too late for some businesses, but not for others.
It depends on what the impact. I mean, certainly for some businesses, some people have the ability to adapt and react much more quickly. I don't think that COVID has helped in that respect, because I think what you have is businesses looking at this and saying, unless I have all the information there, and we do have a chunk of about 30 to 40% of our members who say they just cannot prepare with that incomplete information. They will only be able to adjust once that detail. And to be clear, it's not just the FTA. It's about what is the sort of implementing guidance that HMRC does with that FTA.
So basically, the upshot is it's going to be extremely difficult. Some might be able to adapt when an agreement is made, but the problem is that you've got so many other uncertainties, alongside with COVID and much else, that it's quite hard to see. Picking up the chair's questions as well about Dover and 7,000 lorries and the rest of it, it's quite hard to see, given the time that's left, that we are going to be able to have a smooth, managed transition.
I think at the end of the day, it really depends on how early we get that information. If we have all of it by mid-October, then I think that you are in a better position than you would certainly be at the end of November. And that's what we want to make sure, is that it doesn't go down to the wire sort of weeks.
Thank you. I think I've run out of time, unless Chair says that Elizabeth's put her hand up, unless the Chair says she can.
Yes. Elizabeth, did you want to come back in?
Yes, I just wanted to make the point that that there are very good reasons for wanting a deal, but in terms of preparedness of business for the customs and other checks at the border, the difference between deal and no deal is not so important. It's generally the same preparation we need to be making. It does help in other areas, though.
Thank you very much.